First up, Mr. Dan Marshall, who needs no introduction. Take it away.
I'm ready. Hey, welcome to Oakley. I'm an Oakleyite myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I learned most of my techniques in sales and business. How many people have waited tables or been a server? Let's hear it. All right, you guys are definitely going to know what I'm talking about when it comes to learning about business, because everything that I needed to know about business or life or sales, I seem to always be able to go back to my experiences as a server and waiting on tables. I realized very early that each time that I went out to develop my business, that everything doesn't always revolve necessarily around me. I learned really quickly that there's a large group of people that support me. And in the restaurant business, that's very true too. You have, people that do production and cooks and bussers, and of course our hostesses, who we have to know really well. I know there's a few hostesses out there. You have to realize that all these people are there to help you succeed. Nothing ever happens without somebody behind there helping you. So I learned that early. I learned things like real estate. I mean, in the restaurant business, real estate is majorly key. Which section you get is going to determine how much money you have at night, and how you turn that real estate. You get to learn the value of those things. You also learn how to approach people. I know anybody that knows me won't believe it, but I was backwards shy until I was 19 years old. I couldn't talk to a person, but somehow approaching a table over and over and over every single night made me realize that all of us are pretty much the same, so I get to learn a lot from them. I also learned about production. No matter where I went, whether I was selling cars or if I was selling cell phones or I was working on computers or food, I always had to deal with the cooks or the technicians or the mechanics, and I learned to build those relationships. I also learned that product knowledge was key. I used those production people to help teach me about my products so that I could better present them to the next person. It's important to learn product knowledge, and any server will tell you that they learn this waiting tables. With the production, it helped me develop my presentation skills. Again, repeating yourself over and over to tables and explaining, "Hi, my name's Dan. I'm here to take your drink order." You get pretty confident with your presentation skills and using that product knowledge and putting it together. Doing that, you sell the sizzle. A good example is some things, they're just the same old things. So you have to make them sound a little bit better than they are, so you have to sell the sizzle. One of my favorites is, the Long Island iced tea. There's tons of alcohol in the Long Island iced tea, but I always had people say, "Hey, make sure you pour that really heavy for me." So, I learned how to sell the sizzle by taking it back and asking the bartender to pour the last shot of tequila down the straw. So when she... it was awesome. Everybody thought I poured them heavy. You also have to have a gimmick. Any Gypsy fans out there? That's Mazeppa and Electra, and that's from my stage days. But you really do have to have a gimmick. I learned to do magic tricks. on my life. There are definitely character building days. Anybody that knows me knows that I never have a bad day. I only have character building days. When you're at a restaurant, you're going to have a day that not everything goes right. Whether it's a mishap with your product, we all have product mishaps, so you have to learn how to deal with that, and which always can sometimes cause a little bit of the next step, which is conflict. Conflict management in the restaurant business happens every single day. You have to think on the fly. Just like in real business, you're going to have irate customers hollering at you. So you can hone those skills. If you ever meet a server, I'm sure that they'll have plenty of stories about that. Not just conflict management, but management in general. I always had a sales manager that was telling me I wasn't making enough calls, or I didn't have enough buttons on my flare. I wasn't taking care of it. You start to learn to build those relationships. And of course, dealing with stress. I don't think that there's a job in the world that you have to deal with more multitasking at the same time as you do when you're a server. And that definitely prepares you later on when you're trying to run a business. Compensation, sales, commission, how much you sell, all comes down here. And I'm not even touching on the skills that you have to do as far as profit and loss statements, when you settle up with the bartender and everybody at the end of the night. It gives you a great thing. Of course, you're going to get screwed, but you can go visit IGotStiff.com and read about 8 million stories about learning about getting screwed and what you do when it happens. It's going to happen in business, but you can't cry over spilled milk, okay? One thing that I learned is that if I have a bad table, it's not a problem because you know what? They're going to be gone. Just like in business. You have a bad idea, you make a mistake, you take the next step, and you move on to the next table. So I guess what I'm getting down to is if you're about to hire somebody and you look down on their resume and it says waited tables at XYZ restaurant, remember it comes with a lot of experience, and that person's going to be able to get it done for you. Thank you very much. Have a great night at Ignite.
All right, next up, Jason Duff, where are you? You got 15 seconds to make the stage. You guys got to be fast. Also, speakers, stay between the red lines. I got rid of alarm clocks years ago. It's called being unemployed.
You stole my thunder. That was it. I want everyone to do a little visualization exercise. Close your eyes. Imagine you're deep in sleep, but keep looking at me while you close your eyes. You're deep in a world of dreams, fantastic adventures, exotic locations, maybe even a triple rainbow. And then something like this happens. Abruptly, you're ripped from your sleep by an alarm clock with no warning. Alarm clocks are dream killers. And every day, we let these assassins be our very first impression of the day. It's not surprising that we live in a society full of people that just don't do mornings. Don't do mornings? Every single person has to deal with the morning every single day. How can we let something we have to deal with every day be so rotten? And when you think about it, this also can't be very healthy either. I'm willing to bet in 20 years, alarm clocks will be sold with Surgeon General warnings on it, and the only people that will use alarm clocks anymore will be teenagers that want to rebel against their parents. But when you think about it, there are times when mornings aren't so bad, and that's when we're on vacation. When our first experience of the day is sunshine versus alarm clocks. Vacation sleep is the best sleep in the world because we give our body the sleep that it really needs. So last time I was on vacation, I decided to track how much sleep my body really wanted with this cool app called Sleep Cycle. And then I wanted to compare it to how much sleep I typically gave it so I could figure out what the difference was. And the difference will blow your mind. It was 44 minutes. It was 44 minutes that was keeping me from getting that great, awesome vacation sleep. I said another way, if I slept an extra 44 minutes a day, I could throw away that rotten alarm clock. And so what I did was I decided to pursue two different strategies. First was, how do I get more sleep every day? And then the second strategy is, how do I become a sleep expert so I can end up spending less time in bed? All right? So the first strategy of getting more sleep is you need to treat sleep like an appointment. This isn't even a funny slide. What are you guys doing? All right. You got to treat it like... well, that too. You got to treat it like an appointment. Second is you need to identify what are all the time wasters in your life. And the good news is, I look at this crowd, I know you guys are wasting a lot of time every day, and what you're probably going to tell me is, I need that stuff to relax. Well, my clever response is, there's nothing more relaxing than sleep, so get serious. But since I know this group probably won't get rid of their Farmville, instead we're going to turn to strategy 2, and that is how do you become a sleep expert? And here are 5 tips. All right. The very first tip is exercise. All right. Exercise is so important in your health in general, but it also helps you get into REM sleep faster. And then as an added benefit is, if I know some people who like sending pictures of themselves in their underwear to random people, if you start working out, less people will call the police. It'll be more of a treat. Second is, after 5 o'clock, no caffeine. So instead of drinking coffee or pop or tea, drink water. It's better for you, and it's cheaper, and it won't keep you up all night. Third's a little tougher. No work, no TV after an hour before you go to bed. It's too stimulating. So instead, sit down with a nice relaxing book or magazine. I recommend anything by Immanuel Kant will put you to sleep in about 10 minutes flat. No problem. Next is also about an hour before you go to bed, dim the lights, right? Turn down the temperature, like act like getting ready to go on a date with a polar bear. Make it really comfortable. That is a signal to your body it's time to go to bed. And also, anytime you use less electricity or gas, it makes old man Mother Nature happy. And last is, when it comes to your choice in bedding, treat yourself, don't cheat yourself. You spend 1/3 of your life in bed, so make sure you get yourself a comfy bed. It'll make sure you get a good night's sleep, and it'll also do wonders for your back, all right? So So once you start doing all these 5 things, start taking off the training wheels. Start setting your alarm clock later and later and later, and eventually you're going to get to a point where you can just completely throw out your alarm clock, like I did. If you do this, if you follow all the tips in the presentation, you will be a superhero, and your superpower will be sleeping, which may sound lame, but it's better than what Aquaman could do, right? Now, I know what some of you guys are probably saying. You guys are saying, Jason, you're so smart and funny and attractive. Why do you want to put all these alarm clock workers out of work? Guys, I'm not trying to put anyone out of work, all right? Just like when the Soviet Union dissolved and all the nuclear scientists went to go work on other things like the space program, we'll have all those people who worked on alarm clocks go make more countdowns to parties and fiestas. So, no unemployment. So, please, I hope everyone will join me in my quest to get rid of alarm clocks so you too can be an obnoxious morning person. Thank you.
All right, 15 seconds is not enough time to introduce this next speaker. She's a reformed VC. That means she used to put money into startups. Now she's doing a startup herself. And she just published a book about everything you need to do about startups, and she's here to share some of her research. Please welcome Elizabeth.
Thank you. Economics, no longer the dismal science you turn on Bloomberg, and it sounds like a football game. Ooh, the U.S. just fumbled with subprime lending. Ooh, this is going to be a nail-biter. But I wanted to share with you guys some of the research and trends that I've done in startups. This one I call co-founders with facial hair. No, seriously. The number one misconception, the trend out there that we're facing right now is most Americans believe that they cannot afford individual health insurance. And that's just wrong. Because if you can afford a cell phone, you can afford individual health insurance. And why is this misconception out there? Well, we have been led to believe that the health care that our employers are offering us is a benefit. But if you are under 40, which many of you are, young, healthy, attractive, you may be better off on your own. Your health insurance is probably cheaper. So I would encourage you to go to ehealthinsurance.com or any other quoting tool and price check. Look at how much your employer is charging you in your paycheck, and look at how much you can get online. A lot cheaper. Second big misconception about startups. VCs are the number one source of funding. Wrong. 1 in 1,000 companies is funded by VCs. Who does fund startups? The entrepreneur, friends and family, the SBA, and informal angel investors. Which one do you think is more likely to fund your company? Shocker. Informal angel investors are not as wealthy and well-heeled as we would think. 40% of them make less than $50,000 a year. Their average investment, $10,000. This is an example. This is not the real guy. Ian McGlynn invests in his girlfriend's friend's company, The Body Shop. Makes $230 million off of that investment. Not bad for a friendly investment. So this is reality. When you poll entrepreneurs, they will tell you that their number one challenge is financing. But I'm here to tell you that you are far more likely to meet your first investor at the table at Thanksgiving than in a boardroom downtown. So financing should not be your challenge, but I will tell you why it is. When you ask investors why startups don't get funded, equity investors, what will they tell you? I want to see big markets. I want to see a profitable business model because I want to make a lot of money. Big return, upside, that's all they care about. When you ask banks why do you think startups aren't funded by banks? It's not the business plan. It's credit. Credit score. 90% of startup loan denials are due to bad credit. And if it's not a showstopper for you, it's going to cost you. Because even if you do get approved, take a look at these two loans. 650 FICO, 800 FICO, a lot better, right? The person with 650 FICO credit score is going to pay $33,000 more in interest on a $50,000 loan. Startup finance is personal finance. So this is a personal finance tool I recommend. Aaron Patsker started this company, 27-year-old out of Duke, sold it to Intuit. It is the best free personal finance software on the web. You should sign up. More specific to credit, if you want to improve your credit score, Credit Karma, freecreditreport.com, Quizzle, they're all free. They're all great. If you monitor, if you measure, you can change. Here's the bonus round. Entrepreneurs are wealthier than their employed peers. On average, entrepreneurs have 6 times more net worth and make, on average, twice as much in income as their employed peer. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And this is the whole point of my book. It pays to be frugal. In fact, this is a slide from the Rest in Peace, Good Times Sequoia Capital. VCs will tell you, if you can be frugal, if you can be fast, you will come out on top, whether you're VC funded or not. So my book's on Amazon, it's on Kindle. Thank you so much.
All right, how cool is that we have a hot new startup book that's published from Cincinnati? I love it. Cincinnati, hot new startups, hotbed, something. Any Bengals fans in the audience? No, it's Cincinnati. There's no Bengals fans in Cincinnati. Tony, where are you? Go for it.
Thanks a lot. Any Bengals fans again? Suckers. No, I'm a devout Bengals fan. I'm also a fan of leadership. And Mike Brown and leadership are the perfect oxymoron. I'm going to go over the 5 rules. A lot of people ask me, why is it important to talk about Bengals and leadership? Well, because communities need leadership. And Mike Brown's a part of the community. And someday, I'd like to watch a Super Bowl with my boys. Aren't they cute? Aww. See, the first leadership rule is simple. Good choices aren't genetic. Mike Brown is not his dad. And that's a problem I don't think he's quite got yet. Paul Brown knew how to run an organization. If you look at this chart, the black area indicates the Bengals wins versus Mike Brown's involvement. Needless to say, epic failure comes to mind. What we can also look at is our winning percentage. Now, the good news is we're not last in the AFC. We're coming in second to last at 439, but we are second to an expansion team. So if we give them time, they'll catch up. It's also important to remember the approach. See, when Paul Brown was in charge, people were proud of the Bengal nation. Needless to say, Bengals fans over the years have changed headgear. The bag, very popular. The second leadership rule, get the right people on the bus. Every great leader knows that they need to be surrounded by great people. Unfortunately, Mr. Brown tends to take the Lone Ranger approach. A great example, our starting wide receiver. Chad Ochocinco, who's a friend of mine, he tweeted me once, likes to spend the off-season dancing with the stars. What about football? Is that important? Well, then of course we have the 9 Bengals that were arrested. The good news is the Hamilton County Penal League had a great year. This is all off-the-field problems. Then, of course, a new recent development, Ray Malaluga. We gave him first-round draft pick money, apparently to support his pot habit. The good news is he's been in rehab, and we think he's doing well, as long as he can stay off the weed. The third rule, if you know it and don't do it, you don't really know it. See, most NFL teams use things like the draft and the combine to build up good talent. The Bengals scouting department has taken a little bit of a different approach, a Ouija board. See, actually, what most people don't know is the Bengals have the least amount of scouts in the entire league. So we consistently pick the wrong person. A great example, David Klingler, drafted in '92. He finished his career with 16 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. Another quarterback, Achilles Smith, drafted in '03. He played 3 games his first 2 years. Our next pick was a can't miss, Kajana Carter, drafted number 1 overall, played 3 games in a scrimmage, hurt himself, and played 0 games his first year. And then that attractive young man here, that's Andre Smith. He hurt his foot in a non-contact drill. The 4th rule of leadership is simple. Listen to your followers. See, there are a lot of people paying big money to sit in the seats, and they like Mike Brown's attention a little bit. A great example of this is the Who Dey Revolution website. They put a little bit of money into a downtown billboard. Needless to say, Mike Brown is ignoring them successfully as well. Then we have one of my favorite guys. He rents a plane and he flies his sign over the stadium. $458 million to build Paul Brown Stadium, 0 wins. Good news for Hamilton County tax voters. He only needs $43 million more. Expect that on the levy soon. Then, of course, Bob Burkowski. His firing was about 7 years late, primarily because he only had 4 plays, and he got them from Super Tecmo Bowl. Then, of course, my main man, Carson Palmer. Now, he's 31. He's 1 year older than me. He told Mike Brown this year that he is going to retire if he doesn't be traded, leaving $50 million on the table. Wow. See, when it all comes down to it, the 5th and final rule of leadership is know when to say when. And unfortunately for Bengals fans, Mike Brown doesn't. 114 wins, 205 losses, and 1 tie. Leadership failure.
So the longer I live in Cincinnati, the more amazed I am at how cool this city is, and nobody frickin' knows it. Even the people who live here. Actually, the people who live here have a worse opinion than the people who don't live here. She's going to fix it for you about games.
Toys! Let's talk about toys! I'm the only one that's going to use my nose tonight. It's too much to remember here. I work 2 jobs. What can I say? All right. Here's the deal. Hang on tight, because we're going to take a ride through 150 years of Cincinnati toy history. Ray Lohr was born here in 1912, attended Xavier University. Spent 37 years at Mark's Toy Company in Erie, Pennsylvania, where his accomplishments include hundreds of mechanical patents and these 2 classics. These guys saved their dying soap biz in the 20s by selling wallpaper cleaner, a household staple in the days of dirty, cold heat. When demand fell off in the 50s, a friend of the family, she was a teacher, she discovered this made a good modeling clay for her students, and the rest is toy history. The driving force on the design team that invented the Nerf ball was a UC DAP alum. Early Nerf advertisements said you can throw it indoors, you can't damage lamps or break windows, and you won't hurt babies or old people. With over 150 million sold, Uno is the best-selling card game of all time, worldwide, period. It was invented by a neighborhood barber named Merle Robbins right here in Reading, Ohio. And I'm here tonight because I'm the founder of the Cincinnati Game and Toy Industry Professionals Group. We're 100 members strong, and we represent professionals here in Cincinnati who work in every capacity of the global industry. So here's how I got into toys. That's my husband Jeff up there playing Uno in the mid-'70s. He was one of the first kids to play test Uno before the world got their hands on it. That experience inspired him to go for it later when he came up with the idea for our game. Okay, so we can't talk about toys without talking about Kenner here in Cincinnati. For over 50 years, they were toys here. In the mid-'70s, they were hitting their full stride with over 1,000 workers. They were the 2nd largest manufacturer, and they sold 50 million toys a year. Okay, so Easy Bake Oven. It looked like a miniature 1960s kitchen stove when they first came out with it. The original light bulb cooking idea hasn't changed, but the outer appearance has morphed 11 times. Stretch Armstrong, filled with corn syrup, by the way. sure a few of you guys had that toy. $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, all mid-'70s Kenner hits. But on the horizon, a new product line was about to emerge from Kenner. Let me just put it to you this way. All the Star Wars toys from 1977 to 1985 were made right here in Cincinnati. All of them. So Hasbro bought Kenner in 91, made a lot of toys here through the 90s, and then they closed the doors in Cincinnati in 2000. That was kind of sad. And the Kenner era is beyond compare when it comes to sheer volume and brought decades of notoriety to the city. But I got to tell you, Cincinnati toy innovation predates Kenner by nearly 80 years. Modifying a centuries-old toy concept, these guys set the precedent for using patents to provide design improvements made to existing products. And this guy's gliding innovation scored a safety breakthrough, keeping horse and rider from going head over heels, not to mention scratching floors, bumping furniture, and squashing little fingers and toes. Okay, so French Bagatelle is a tabletop game similar to pool. Montague Redgrave made them right here in Cincinnati and replaced the traditional cue stick with his patented spring-loaded plunger, setting the stage for pinball as we know it today. U.S. Playing Card Company has been making the world's best quality playing cards right here since 1981. They sell more than 100 million decks a year, including 20 million to casinos all over the world. I know we've got some U.S. playing card people here in the audience. Carlisle and Finch created the first electric toy train right here in Cincinnati, 1896, before Lionel. World War II forced them away from toys to make searchlights for the military. Today, they're still here. Their searchlights are the industry standard. And our bumpy ride wouldn't be complete without the Cozy Coupe. I bet you guys had one of those when you were a kid, didn't you? Yeah, you did. By the early 90s, it was the best-selling car in North America, outselling the Ford Taurus, the Toyota Camry, and the Honda Accord. All right, so in the last 10 years, Cincinnati toy makers are still doing it. We've been recognized with toy industry's highest honor, the Toady Award, twice, these guys. Former Kenner veterans and independent toy inventors continue to produce award-winning products here for global brands and local startups. Cincinnatians tend to be modest when it comes to many of our accomplishments, but our Cincinnati toy and game heritage is and continues to be extraordinary. Thank you.
When we had the first Ignite Cincinnati, my favorite tweet that came out of that, I don't remember who it was Cincinnati, you're much cooler than you think you are. That's a good example of it right there. For 150 frickin' years, we've been cooler than you think we are. Adam, oh, he's on the stage already. Look at that, they're learning.
Thanks. All right, so, over the summer, I got to spend 2 months in India working with a nonprofit design group called Design Impact. But I'm not going to tell you what I did. I want to tell you a little bit what I learned about time-oriented versus event-oriented cultures. But to do that, I feel like I need to qualify those statements. So what I mean by time-oriented is a culture in which let's say you're up by 6:30, you're at the gym by 6:45, you have lunch at noon with the coworkers, and at about 7:27 on the dot, you're given a 5-minute long presentation with exactly 20 slides in exactly 15 seconds. That's a little structure. That's what I mean by time-oriented. So what I mean by event-oriented culture is a little bit looser structure. So it's more of like, think of like an agrarian-type culture, where you get up when the light comes up and you eat at midday. It could be anywhere between 11 and 2. And you stop work when there's no more light out. So it's a little less structured. Time-oriented, event-oriented. So I come from, for frame of reference, I come from this time-oriented culture, United States, where work begins at 8, and I absolutely despise traffic because it interferes with the time, that like we structure every single hour, and I hate that. And for a little background on my hatred for traffic, forgive me, I'm an engineer, so we need a graph. The longer I sit in traffic, the more pissed off I get at every bun around me. And the little blips are me trying to calm myself down, and my fiancée Jessica trying to calm me down, and eventually I just crash, not the car. Yeah, so I went to work. I went to go make an impact. I went to go steep myself in the culture. I went to go eat their food. And just work with the people there. And the thing that I found was that meetings don't necessarily happen at 10 a.m. on the dot. And they may not even happen until the next day. And that was really frustrating to me because I come from this time-oriented culture where everything is exactly on time. And I couldn't deal with that effectively at first really well. So, and I became very frustrated with that. And if I didn't have time to sit and wait on a meeting for 10 minutes, I sure as hell didn't have time to sit in traffic, which you know I love, on business trips to the city. But I don't know if anybody's ever been to an Indian city. This is what traffic looks like all the time. And I hated this because it interfered with that time that I needed to do my stuff, you know? And things just didn't move as fast as I wanted. So I come from this culture with very little room for margin to a culture on the margin. And this lag, I just couldn't deal with it very well at first. It just didn't sit well with me. But then I started getting little glimpses into what I should really be there for. And I learned a lot from the NGO or nonprofit workers and the designers that I worked with that a lot of development work is about building relationships. So I mentioned those business trips to the city, which traffic was awesome. We would often go to machine shops, and I would take my engineering drawings that I spent hours on, and take them, and they just didn't compute. Like it meant nothing. Some cultural barrier there. So this Indian guy named Ilvar Su, who I worked with, helped lead projects, suggested I instead take easy to understand 3D images. Just like quick, throw it together, a couple hours, 3D image, take it to them. But the funny thing about this was Ilvar Su would sit with a machinist and talk about a little feature on that 3D image that I could and did describe in about 2 drawings. He would spend 30 minutes talking to this guy. And I was just like, come on. So, but what I discovered was, what I saw about this was how relational versus informational the culture was there. And in those relationships that I started to understand and try to build into myself, I was able to do the work that I went there to do. And I was able to love the people there and try to help them, which is really the whole intent of me going there in the first place. So I guess what I learned from going to an event-oriented, impoverished culture was when you have to sit in hours of traffic, sit in hours of traffic. Don't bitch. And if their beer is horrible, and it was, drink the beer with them. And if meetings go late, whatever, you know? And I had a lot of inner struggle with India because I want to make an impact. But I learned that it's not necessarily all about what you get done. It's about your dedication. And I hated traffic, but I had to sit in hours of it. And I use the silly metaphor of traffic. And after India, my opinion on traffic overall didn't change, but I think about it more, you know? So what is your traffic? You know, what is your proverbial traffic? And what are you going to do to change your perspective on that? I went to make a difference, but I learned that I needed to build into relationships. And in that, I was able to love and get my stuff done and be more content with my work and be productive in ways I didn't even know possible. It just didn't happen in my time-oriented, traffic-free schedule. But now that I'm back in this culture, I guess I have to be done.
My version of that talk is just chill the fuck out, Americans. Seriously. All right, talking about those crazy Gen Y people I just can't deal with. Matt Welty.
I take it Joe is from Generation X, but my name is Matt Welty, and I work at a payroll and HR technology company called Paycor. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but my generation, Gen Y, is at times seen as a slightly unreasonable. Right? Some people call it entitlement. Regardless of what you call it, we have a bit of a reputation. You know? So I don't want to assume that you guys have ever worked with an unreasonable young professional before, so I'm actually going to introduce you to a few tonight. But if you know some of these people, feel free to respond in kind if you've worked with somebody like I'm about to describe. Like Dave. Dave just graduated from Miami University. He got an entry-level marketing position downtown. And in a recent meeting with his manager, 5 months after he started on the job, he came with his 17 ideas about how to make the company great and asked when he could have a job like hers in the near future. Or maybe you know somebody like Mike. Mike's known for his hard work and dedication, but Mike's also known for job hopping about once every 18 months, right? Ooh. Or maybe you know somebody like Susan. Susan is up here because of her recent accomplishment. She is actually a big people pleaser and has managed to cut down the time in between asking her boss for feedback to 20 minutes. Right? Only every 20 minutes. These are some of the ways that Generation Y has been described lately. And how many of you have worked with a young professional before that you say is slightly unreasonable? Lots of you. How many of you have them at home? Lots of you. This can double as therapy. Given our reputation, though, it's no wonder that employers hesitate to hire young professionals. It's my belief, though, and yes, I'm biased, that YPs can be some of the most highly productive, high-performing employees in your company if leveraged correctly. And I say leveraged, not catered to. But where companies do struggle is when they rely solely on the strategies that have worked well in the past but are not a good fit for Gen Y. Gen Y does need new strategies. And so what's a good way to start with this? How can you get these guys to be some of the best assets in your company? One way to start is by looking at why you think they're unreasonable in the first place and use that as the point that you're going to start to bring them into the business. So if you remember our three people, think about Dave. Now, Dave showed incredible lack of tact and acknowledgement of office politics when he talked about having his boss's job just 5 months after starting with the company. But Dave's aspirations are good, right? So even though his approach is unpolished, we can leverage the fact that he wants to move up quickly. Give Dave a career path. Make sure he remains challenged in his current role, right? If Dave knows that there's a future for him at the company, if he performs well, he stays engaged, and we get to cater his training in a way that benefits both Dave and us. Or maybe there's Mike. Mike doesn't realize that job hopping looks a lot like this to all of you, right? He thinks he's doing himself a favor because he's seeking out new opportunities and learning experiences. And really, he doesn't know that when everyone looks at job hopping, they see someone who's unreliable and fickle. Mike needs a learning plan and a way to track the fact that he's actually getting new experiences and opportunities where he is today. And this lets you, the organization, tailor his learning in a way that's going to benefit him in the long run. And remember Susan. She's kind of our quintessential example of how Generation Y needs constant communication. This, for us, is really rooted in the fact that we were brought up in this highly overscheduled, hyper-productive environment, right? When Susan checks in, she's really just trying to make sure she's not going to go off in the wrong direction for too long without getting feedback. So as her leader, set expectations early on what success looks like and schedule check-in points to mitigate this. The reality, though, is that history tells us that every time a new generation enters the workforce, it frustrates the ones that came before it. So we need to find the strategies that help everyone work together. And when that happens in particular, YPs can be leveraged even more. If you engage with YPs in your organization, these are the folks that are going to be bringing an infusion of new ideas and new approaches and ways of looking at old problems. So engage them because their perspectives can mean meaningful innovation for your company. And if you jump in with both feet, the results for both your company and you individually will be big. For your company, if you engage young professionals, you're going to see individuals who are constantly pushing the envelope of what you, the business leader, think your business is capable of accomplishing. And you, the business leader, if you relate to young professionals, are going to find that, while it may be painful at times, you will improve as a leader and a business owner. And so even if there's not a reverse mentoring relationship in place, you're going to benefit and be positively shaped by the way that Gen Y approaches work and life in this world. So this, Cincinnati, is truly why I think we need to heap money and time and effort on hiring our most positively unreasonable young professionals. Thank you.
Pause. All right, guys. So there's like 400 people here, and probably 410 smartphones in the room. So I want you to break Twitter and break a local cell tower sometime in the next few minutes. What's going to happen now is we're going to do Ignite Karaoke. Calm down, stop pacing. We're going to do Ignite Karaoke, which I'll explain in a second for the half of you who are new. And right after that's done, I want you all to give this guy a review on Twitter. Payback's a bitch. All right. So here's the deal. We do this thing every time called Ignite Karaoke. Karaoke is a bad name for this thing because there's no singing involved. In fact, if somebody sings, I will come and bodily remove them. What it is it's really improv. There's a deck of slides that's about to happen here that nobody has seen except me. I swear to God, this guy has not seen these slides. You're up. 3, 2, 1.
That's going to be very clear. I'm here to tell you about why I'm not worthy to do Ignite Karaoke. And first of all, it's because I really have a thing for dolls. I love like dolls, especially dolls with no noses. That's a human? You're fucking crazy. Alright, seriously, I'm not worthy because of these reasons. First of all, my inbox is cluttered with 7,000 emails every day. I've subscribed to Google Reader and Mashable and all those other garbage things that you guys do, but, well, that's not going to be an issue, right? I think we all know each other well enough. I might as well take my fucking pants off. Is that like if you're in a certain kind of theater, it's the next stage of fucking 3D? Jesus. I'm so sorry about this for kids who are watching. So Erin Andrews works on ESPN. You know her? Oh! It's not Erin Andrews, but we do pull. We pull, yank. And in fact, most of the time when we do yank, we often Hufflepuff as we're finished. And our Ravenclaw leaves you with turd in a punch bowl. Okay. At this point, I'm going to be looking to all of you tonight to say, Chris, it's okay. All the ridiculous things that you said in the 15 minutes you were on stage tonight. Fuck. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Does anyone want to chime in on this? What? I'm going to wait for this one. Okay, listen. I used to be like this, okay? I had a gastric bypass and stopped eating Doritos and Cheetos and Miley Cyrus was in that picture. What? Well, can we go back? Oh, shit, these get more complicated each time. All right. An REM song. I'm not going to sing, but shiny, happy people. Oh, man, if I'm going to start jumping on a couch. True. And if you did show evidence of cognitive-based learning, you wouldn't marry Katie Holmes. Anyone? You're so done. So done. Well, listen. Even the world has an asshole. Sometimes it has to surrender. In conclusion, now that Milli Vanilli have done that Michael Jackson thing and gone white, their new single's coming out. Actually next week, and it's called Pink Tights. Oh, thank you. That was painful.
Thank you for playing. All right, and now we have 45 minutes of drinking.